security asazi sinenze njani ake nisi-advise. Into cha akube oyedwa
video.
Morning, King. I think I'm okay now. Morning, King.
I'll be fine with voice. I just don't know if I'll be able to share the presentation. I hope that one will work. Thank you,
King. Morning, King.
Ngingacabanga ukuthi ngizolele usasebenzela i-ANC usebenzela iParliament uyasebenza akasebenzeli i-ANC usasebenzela iParliament uyasetshenzwa
King. Namta.
Yes, Chair, sorry.
I'm checking progress. How many members do we have?
Yes, I'm still trying to
Okay.
show. Yes. Okay, Chair. We've got.
Yes,
I think we do form a quorum because we are 6. We've got Mr. Jacobs, Hendricks, Lubengo, Kruger, Mini, and then Mr. Langa is extended an apology, indicating that it seems as if there's a new member that will be joining this committee.
Yeah, I saw the email yesterday. I could not engage with him.
Yeah, but I did tell him that we have to consider the protocol before we say he's a member of the committee. So, yeah, I think we can start, because I can see the chairperson of Seda is in, the sefa it's in, and the acting CFO of Seda it's in.
But by the way, who's the acting CEO there?
It's Mr. Let me get his name. Mr.
The name?
Elias Mabane.
And then the chairperson of Seda?
Chairperson of Seda, Dr. Ndlovu.
Okay. Ukhona uconnectile naye?
Yes.
Yes,
And then
okay.
I see Ms. Plomelang has also connected.
Okay.
Yes. And then
In that case, what about the DM?
the DM has extended an apology.
Minister, Nai.
The minister, I was still waiting from Kujonginanga. Yes.
Okay.
And then
Is the
chairperson,
DG is the
DG has not yet connected.
Chair. Morning, Chair.
morning.
Yeah, it's Martin Mahosi, sefa. I just want to make you aware. Yes, I just want to make you aware the acting DG just alerted us that they are struggling with connection. So they will connect at some stage, yeah.
Oh, just connected.
Okay.
I can see him from the participant. Yes, just connected.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I think
So full complement, you can start.
Yeah, I think we can start, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. Okay, sure. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. It's a wonderful Wednesday today. Hope we are all ready. We're having this meeting today just to get a brief report, quarterly report of our agencies, Seda and sefa. Because as members of the portfolio committee, it's our role to do oversight. So I believe that the agencies are ready according to our previous engagement. So we'll hear from them because we don't have much time because of these visual meetings. It won't be business as usual. This issue of technology is costly, so we'll have to try to minimize time. But let me welcome everyone, honorable members. You are warmly welcome to this meeting. Be ready to engage with the department, to guide them, and our role is to monitor them. But at the same time, our role is to guide them to make sure that our society down there, they receive what they're supposed to receive. So I believe it's going to be a short meeting. We're allocated 2 hours. We have got the agenda before us, all of us. First item, which was opening and purpose and welcome. I have already welcomed you. I have already outlined the purpose of the meeting. The second item is roll call and apologies. I will invite our secretary to tender such apologies if ever there are any. King, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members, and good morning, colleagues. Apologies for the hiccups that we have encountered, but we are still learning this technology. The apologies that I've received, Chairperson, it is from Honorable Langa from the EFF. But unfortunately, I see him now there. And then secondly, I've got an apology for the Deputy Minister and the apology for the Minister, Chairperson. Those are the apologies that I have received. So I think we can welcome Honorable Langa because I can see him now there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Langa, you are warmly welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
We will engage the other matter outside this meeting. I received your email.
Okay.
And thank you. So the next item is briefing by our agency. The first presentation will be from Seda. Can I invite Dr. Ndlovu to present their report to us? Dr. Ndlovu, over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. We do have our acting CEO who will do the presentation to highlight what is it that was achieved in quarter 4. I will then speak to it once she and the other acting executives have presented. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Dr. Ndlovu. CEO, over to you, as requested by the acting chairperson.
Ms. Majola? Ms. Majol. Okay, Ms. Majola seems to be having problems, so maybe I will do the presentation. Ms. Majol.
If you are ready, Doctor, you may proceed.
Okay. Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes. You are audible now, Ms. Majola. Are you having problems? Should I do the presentation?
Yes.
Are you having problems, let's say, or are you doing the presentation? Okay, members, I think I'll do the presentation. Ms. Majola seems to be having problems there. Can you see my screen? I'm trying to share here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it, Doctor.
Okay. I'm trying to see it. I'm not seeing it from my side. But what I'll do, I'll just go to my, if somebody can maybe assist me on the side to do the directing or changing of the slides. So what we had planned to present today to the committee, we wanted to talk a bit on our governance and compliance and give a brief report on our performance, and then report on our human resources, and then deal with financial information that I will hand over to our acting CFO to maybe talk on, and then risk management as well as a conclusion. So I don't know if Akona, the secretary can help me that side to move over to the next slides on governance and compliance. So there we have nothing of a concern to report on. The meetings that we had that were scheduled, we had all the meetings, and all the committees also had their meetings to deal with pertinent issues. So on quarter 4, some of the issues that we covered was the strategy plan. It was finalized. It was the APP as well that we handled, as well as the ICT governance framework and the ICT governance strategic plan, as well as the quarterly performance and compliance reviews. From performance information, so from our performance, what occurred during the last quarter of our financial year? I don't know, members, are you with me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So on our performance, on the performance information, we had various strategic goals that we have set at the beginning of the year. And as you can see from that one, the first one, we had policy and planning coherence. So we have implemented programs to improve that. There was equitable access to responsive and targeted products. We had increased the Seda delivery network. You will see as I report on the actuals, what we have achieved on that. We had an issue we also had a target of enhancing contribution to the socio-economic development outcome sector. We will also talk to the sustainable partnerships and collaborations that we had, and the sound governance and optimal utilization. I've already spoken on that one. So we had 32 strategic indicators that were measured in Q4. Out of this 32, 28 strategic indicators were achieved, meaning that for Seda, our complete organizational performance for that financial year is 87.5%. Where we did not perform well is the number of cooperatives assisted with access to finances, number of clients supported through national gazelles, and number of SMMEs who have graduated, as well as the number of diagnostic assessments conducted on business clients. I will give more information later on through the slides. So this slide, just to the one that talks of the reason of non-achievement. As I said, there are 4 elements where we did not achieve. The one was on the number of diagnostic assessment conducted on clients. We had, and the reason for us not being able to achieve it was the issue of our business advisors. I think at the last meeting, indicated that we had a rate of vacancies there. So it affected us negatively in ensuring that all the diagnostic assessment we wanted conducted were conducted. Then there was the issue of the COVID-19 lockdown. So the things that we have targeted, the numbers that we have targeted, we could not target because we had to be on the lockdown. When it comes to number of cooperatives assisted with access to finance, where we had found it challenging to secure finances for newly established cooperatives. We will talk later on what are the initiatives that we have put in place to ensure that we deal with reluctance to assist cooperatives with funding. And then the third matter that we could not achieve as per our was the issues of gazelles, national gazelles. As you know, that we have reported on this committee before that the program had to be stopped. So we have discontinued that program, thus we could not attain what we have said we will attain during the financial year. And then the last one on the number of SMME graduated. The graduation had been scheduled for end of March, but unfortunately due to the lockdown, we had to postpone the graduation. So this targets could not be met. If you look at the other slides on overall performance against APP targets, so we've looked at the different quotas. You can see from the slide 10 that in Q1, because in Q1 we had about 70% of our targets were met. In Q2 we had 88% of our targets met. Q3 we were at 81%. And Q4, we are slightly up at 87.5% of the achievements. So just looking at the slides now that gives the actual targets as well as the actual achievements. Our first strategic objective was improving service access, increasing the number of enterprise accessing Seda services. We had targeted briefing sessions, 22,000. We had targeted 22,000 people for our briefing sessions and awareness. And there was our milestone. What we actually achieved was 36,000. That is 14,684 variants. So we overachieved. The number of diagnostic assessment, I've spoken about that we had targeted to conduct 11,212, but we could not achieve that number. We achieved 11,196, so we have a variance of 16. On the number of people trained in business management, we targeted to train 5,000 people. We overachieved by 6,320 because we ended up training 11,320. The last one of that slide is number of interventions implemented on SMMEs. We had targeted 2,200. We overachieved. Our actual target was actual achievement was 4,806. So we had 606, a variance of 606. We overachieved by then. The next slide, increasing number of cooperatives accessing Seda services. Our first objective there was the number of interventions implemented on adopted cooperatives. So we had targeted 150 cooperatives, but we overachieved there. Our actual achievement was 627, so we had a 477 overachievement. The number of cooperatives assisted with access to finances, we wanted to assist 200 cooperatives, but instead only assisted 139. Like I said before, we had reluctance from financial institutions in assisting cooperatives because they just felt that the risk was too high. And then the increased number of enterprise supported through enterprise development programs, number of clients supported through national gazelles. That one I've also touched on. So we did not achieve that one because the program has been discontinued. Then there's a number of clients supported through enterprise coaching. We had targeted 370, but we then achieved 2 more extra enterprise coaching. Number of learners participating in entrepreneurship schools. We had targeted 12,000 learners. We were able to get 182 more learners that we were able to engage in entrepreneurship program. Improving service access. Our first target was number of clients supported export, exhibition, and training. We had targeted 450. We sent 586 clients to export or exhibition and train. Number of informal businesses supported, we had targeted 350, but we achieved 366, so there's an overachievement there. And then on the number of informal businesses supported through supply development program, we had wanted to support 200, but we ended up supporting 7 additional. And through our retail motor industry support. The one on increasing number of clients trained in quality improvement, our target there has been 850. We overachieved once again by 157. And then increasing service access points, number of co-location, our target has been 65. We achieved 87. As you can see, once again, overachievement on that front. Improving service access, with that one as well, we over So one of the things we had also wanted to do, we wanted to expand on the footprint on our core location. So this slide number 18 talks to the number of municipalities that we have co-located with. We ensured, I mean, this is to just ensure we've got that consistent service delivery, and also it just talks to those rural areas or far to reach areas where they were having issues with engaging with Seda. So we had 3 co-locations with 87 municipalities and partners. We also had 23 co-locations at Seda branches and leveled mobile units, and 5 new locations were established in quarter 4. So these 5 new co-locations in the Eastern Cape, one in Free State, one in Gauteng, and then one in Northern Cape. The issues of LED officers, we have trained. I mean, it's a hot one, and we have been working with municipalities. We are able to train 46 LED officers on Seda basic diagnostic tools in the following provinces. So in the Eastern Cape, we trained 8 LED officers, in Limpopo 33, and in Northwest 5. We are obviously going to continue with this training, and we have set that as part of our targets. And then 34 LED officers were trained on the new venture creation in partnership with Services Theta from the following municipalities: City of Tshwane, we trained 2, and Ntangala Municipality 1, Dihlabeng 8, and Maluti Apofung 10, Nkomazi 9, and Popela 4. So the digital hubs, just reflecting on special projects funded by DSDB, we managed to leverage 17 million from partners. Those are some of the partners that the digital hubs that were established from this money that we're able to leverage. There are 6 there, as you can see, and the provinces are spread. We have one in Free State, in Limpopo, Mpumalanga, KZN Northwest, as well as in Gauteng. Continuing on these special projects, so in addition to our digital hubs that were established, we also established township hubs, as we had planned to do, and this was through the 24 million that we were able to leverage from partners and 2 infrastructures that we have shared with Agri Park. So we have 13 township hubs that were established, some in the Eastern Cape, in Gauteng. We did quite a lot there, as well as the Western Cape, Northwest, KZN, and Mpumalanga. We have also spoken about centers for entrepreneurship, rapid incubators. So we have 9 that were established in various provinces there. As you can see, we had one in Mpumalanga and Western Cape, Northern Cape, as well as in Eastern Cape and Free State. And so there's a fair amount of spread on that one. If we were to look at the priorities for the 6th administration pitch for funding, I think we have reported on this a couple of times on the work that we have done. So during the period under review, 2,290 entrepreneurs attended pitch for funding and master classes in the Vhembe district. So this, as you know, is a project that we've collaborated with sefa and DSDB on. We had sessions that took place covering 9 district municipalities within KZN, and we were able to reach 2,442 in the KZN area. So if you're looking at the total for the year, 4,732 entrepreneurs were prepared for funding. We had we also did quite a number of work on district markets, feasibility studies, and business plans for 4 products. Were completed and were submitted to the department for implementation under the Economic Infrastructure Program. There's the incubation and BDS standards that we've been speaking to the committee about. So it's in process, and in partnership with SABC, it's in progress. I mean, 50% of it has been achieved by end of March. I also just wanted to highlight some of the leverage access to funding, contracts, and businesses support that happened under Quota 4. We want, if you're looking at access to contracts with more than 80 million, we have a number of employees that are not employees, of clients that we'd want to just highlight on contracts that they've received that's more than 80 million. We've got Agnes Renovation, which secured 2 contracts over 2 years with Vetanda Transforming Elements. So this valued at 2 million. Joe's Kavu Flavor as well. They are now supplying ShopRite at a value of about 120,000 per month. TJ Hot Food Cafe, they also signed a 1.8 million contract with SEPCO, and then Wala Enterprises and Cleaning. They also were able to conclude the contract with Town Primary School at the value of 230,000. So there's a number of these clients who we have supported and who we have assisted in facilitating these contracts that will obviously do a lot of, that will have an impact on their business as well as their sustainability. Continuing that one, we've got Matungoni General Trading, 100% black owned. They are now supplying Coca-Cola at about 30 million. It's a 3-year contract. Then we've got McDiga in the Northern Cape. There was also awarded a contract by the Department of Roads. We are looking at about 43 million, creating 80 new jobs. Adonai Enterprise, they've also were able to conclude a contract with Kumba. The contract is between the contract is a value of 5 million. So 38 additional people will be able to be employed as a result of that. So there's a number of these clients, Chair, that we're able to assist throughout Quota 4, and who we have sort of, who we have put in here for members to see. We have also just mentioned the provinces they come from, and the value and the new jobs that they were able to create, and how long those contracts will last for, and what is it exactly that these contracts will be doing with these contracts. I would, I'd want to then move on to talk about cooperatives, because I know members it's been an ongoing question when it comes to what are we doing for cooperatives. Cooperatives is also one of our priorities. We have about 6 slides that also just talk to different cooperatives that we're able to assist. If you see in the slides that follow, you will see that a number of them that we've helped, we've tried to go to those far away districts, or districts that ordinarily are not assisted. If you can see, you'll see there Northern Cape. I'm happy to see there's been a lot of work that we've done in the Northern Cape with supporting cooperatives. We've got Seed of Life in the Northern Cape, Ostrich Export Arbiter, where we're able to assist 600 women from that cooperative. There's just a number of different cooperatives that we've assisted, and I don't want to, with our time constraints, I don't want to be reading each and every one. I'm sure the members have gone through it and will be ready to take any questions on that one. We have summarized in page 32. We have summarized the values of when it comes to cooperatives with the in rent, how much we have assisted the cooperatives. So it's in slide 32. I think now what I'll do, I'll just go on quickly on the human resources report. I think last time we did report that we have a staff vacancy at 5%, so that's still the case. Business advisors, I've mentioned earlier that 8% of our business advisors, we've got 8% vacancy when it comes to business advisors, that we are working on trying to fulfill that one. And then I think I'll just hand over to our acting CFO to take us through the financial report. Thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Marani, you can take over.
Good morning, honorable members. Can we please present the information? We realized that the information submitted was for 2018-19. We like to share on the screen the 2019-20 information. I will start with the slide 36. That's where is it visible, members? The slide I'm sharing.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Our total revenue for the Seda 2019-20 is an amount of 961 million. This is based on the draft financial statement as we are busy preparing for the audited financials. The total budget expenditure is an amount of 1,028 million. Included in the amount of 1,028 that is there is an amount of 96 million that we received from National Treasury. The surplus was approved around November 2019. The budget split per expenditure category is as follows. From the 1 billion budget, an amount of 386 million is budgeted for the personnel cost, which is about 37.57% of our budget. The operating cost, excluding the personnel, is an amount of 177 million, which is 17% of our budget. The core, which is programs and project, is an amount of 446 million, which is our biggest expenditure, is 43%. And then we have about 18 million that we budgeted for the capital expenditure. The draft financial statement for from 1st April 2019 to 31st 1920 it shows that we spent to date an amount of 932 million, which result in a pro rata underspending of about 96 million from our budget of 1 billion. I'll move to the next slide. In the next slide, we show the expenditure trends and progress between the quotas. We start with quota 1 for the personnel, whereby we spent about 22%, then it increased to 47% in quota 2 and 70% in quota 3. We ended spending 95% in quota 4. This is due to the vacancies and the staff movement. The vacancies, we fill them, but during the period that they were vacant, then the money is not spent. From the operating and administration expenditure budget of 178 million, we spent about 90%. We tried to implement the strict compliance with cost containment measures, and some of the activities like traveling and ICT services were delayed due to COVID-19. From the programs budget of 446 million, we spent about 87%. Programs were executed in a cost-effective manner. However, also again, due to the last month or the last quarter, most of the events were postponed due to COVID-19. Then we resulted in an underspending of about 13%. From the capital expenditure, we spent the 82% of the budget, which was about 18 million. We managed to spend 15 as reported in quarter 4. The total expenditure, we spent an amount of 932%, which is 91% of our 1 billion budget. Some of the programs that are with ring-fence monies are continuing, as Seda implement them with the third parties, we get the funding from the municipalities and some of the funding come from the provincial government. Those monies that are not spent are being rolled over to the next financial year. The next slide is whereby we show the expenditure performance per year. We spent about 933 million in this financial year 1920. We spent 839 million at the previous financial year, which is 2018-19, and in 2017-18 we spent 765 million. From 2015-16 we spent 743 million, and our expenditure keeps on going high as we get a bigger budget. The next slide, I will show the portfolio spend per program. We have program number 1, which is enterprise development. Program number 2 is Seda technology program, and program 3 is the support services. From our budget, 52% of our budget was allocated to enterprise development program, 27% was allocated to Seda technology program, which also include the incubations, and about 19% was included to the administration and support services. So from the spending, the program 1, enterprise development, we spent 90% of the budget. From program 2, which is Seda technology program, we spent 96.82%, and from the administrative, which is program 3, we spent 81.88%. That's the end of the financial report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mabani. Ms. Majola, are you back online?
I'm back online, ma'am.
Okay, take us through the last slides, please. Thank you. Ms. Majola.
Can you say the presentation, ma'am?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay, I'm not gonna take the committee back.
Just start from risk management, because we've done everything. Just go on risk management.
Yes, that's where I am. This is just a summary of our overall risk management. It indicates the percentage of risk treatment action plans that we were able to address by the end of the fourth quarter. We completed 77%, 23% are still in progress. There are no risk treatment action plans that have not been addressed yet. This slide indicates the strategy is a summary, or rather a pie presentation of the previous slide, so I'm not going to repeat it. This is just general comments on some activities that were affected by COVID-19. We had planned a business advisor seminar in March, which didn't take place. Some of the training sessions with small businesses had to be cancelled. Some of our stakeholder engagement sessions, especially on the district delivery model, they had to be postponed because we went on lockdown. We also had local and at least one international exhibition that was supposed to happen in February that had to be cancelled also because of the restrictions on traveling. This is just a slide on our readiness for work that we've done on the ecosystem facilitator. We've completed our mapping project, both for business development services, as well as mapping the incubation ecosystem. With the district ecosystem facilitation model, we had engaged extensively with stakeholders in OR Tambo as the pilot district. We were at a stage where we were working towards the establishment of the district SMME coordinating council. We've trained LED officers on basic Seda tools. We've also done the mapping of our operational processes to align with other stakeholders in the district. Currently, we are at a stage where ourselves and the department are aligning our own model with the National Department of Quotas. We've had an engagement with them already. They've shared their information. We are arranging a follow-up engagement for the first week of July. We finalized the discussion paper on the professionalization of business advisory services, which has been submitted to SAP and is serving as the basis for development of standards for business advising. We also, the department is also working on business development and incubation policy. So the discussion paper on business advising will serve, will form as a big part of business development services in that policy. Incubator standards were gazetted in the fourth quarter and they are out for public comments. We developed a business model and a business plan for our learning academy, as we want to position Seda as the center of business development services capacity building, not just for Seda, but for the ecosystem as a whole. So among key priorities for the new financial year is rolling out BDS support for all COVID response and the economic recovery programs for the informal sector, as we've seen being launched by the minister and the department, enhancing our capability to deliver services virtually, and our general ITC capacity. We're working on e-learning platform with the assistance of the ecosystem development for small enterprises. This is an EU supported program that is located in the department. Is one of the key areas that they are assisting us with that will enable us to do remote business advising as well as mentorship and coaching for clients. We are also resuming stakeholder engagements around the district ecosystem facilitation model. We are finalizing the key elements of the model, as I've indicated in the previous slides, the standards as well as the district information management system. The EDSE program is also playing a very important role in that one. We're also reskilling our staff on new competencies that will be required by the new model. Our collaboration with sefa, especially the integration of our referral process, is also one of our focal points. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Majola. Chairperson, that was the end of our presentation. Thank you very much to you and the members. Thanks.
Seems like the chair is gone.
Chairperson, are you there?
Chairperson Zuela.
Honorable Jacobs, Honorable Faiz Jacobs, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
We are suggesting that you proceed.
Okay. Greetings, colleagues. I'm sure there's connectivity without chair.
She's back.
Oh, she's back.
Yes, I'm back with.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Chair.
I was suggesting that we allow sefa to present so that when we engage with discussion, we do them both. Agreed? Sefa, Sefa, over.
Agreed.
Sefa, over to you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I am with me in the room. I've got the acting CEO of SEFA, the CFO, and the head for lending. So, Mate Mulepo, Mayor Alibit, and Ms. Full. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, no, thank you. We will split between ourselves. I'll handle the presentation up to slide number 7, Chairperson, and then the CEO will complete the presentation.
Okay, no problem. Lead us, please.
Yeah, thank you, honorable members. As indicated, I'll try and be as quick as possible, not waste your time, as we know that there are constraints on time. We can start directly with slide number 3. The title reads Quarter 4 Performance Dashboard. The total number of approvals for the quarter, as you may see, we exceeded the target. The target was 186 million. We approved 637, giving us a percentage of 342%. On disbursement, we're sitting at 186%, which is an achievement of 295 against the target of 159. On jobs, we just made the 100% mark for the quarter, which was an 18,637 against the target of 18,399. The number of SMMEs, we did not perform so well for the quarter. We're sitting at 69%. The target having been 18,000, and we achieved a number of 12,300. On youth, we achieved 83%, which was a target of an achievement of 40 million against on the development impact rather on youth, rural, women, black, small, meaning the micro enterprises and townships and disabilities. On youth, as I said, we achieved 83%. On actual achievement of 40 million against a target of 48 million. On rural enterprises, we achieved 55%, which is 50 million against a target of 90 million. On women, we achieved 79%, which is an achievement of 71 million against a target of 90 million. On black enterprises, we achieved 137%, which is an achievement of 182 million against a target of 133 million. On small enterprises, those that we lent below the figure of 500,000, we achieved 12,319, 12,319 against a target of 17,919. On townships, the achievement was low, as has been the case in most of the instances. We sit at 37%, which is an achievement of 24 million against a target of 65 million. Disability is quite dismal at 2%, which was basically 680, so rather 680,000 against the target of 3.1 million rather. If you go to the next slide, the financial perspective. On impairments, we had set ourselves a target of 33%. We have not achieved that. We're sitting at 41%. It's a number that we're always watching. On cost to income, we achieved better than the target. We achieved 79% against 83%. The collection rate for the quotas stood at 59% against a target of 85%, a reflection of the economy of the country, the state in which we are. The internal business processes, particularly the turnover rate of our staff, we overachieved that. So we had a target of 10%, we achieved 4.48% or 5% on average. If we get to the next slide on the trends, the approvals, total number of approvals, we achieved 1.4 billion, 1.411431,000 to be precise, against a target of 929,000 or 930,000 on average, which was a 152% achievement. On disbursement, we exceeded the target. We disbursed just over $1 billion against a target of 793, which is a percentage of 135%. On the number of enterprises that we financed, we had set ourselves a target of 90,176. We achieved 68,932. We can say 69,000 if we were to round it up, at a percentage of 76%. On jobs facilitated, we achieved 88%, which was an actual of 80.8 or 81% against a target of, on average, a rounded up number of 92,000. So the overall performance for the quotas, you may see, does reflect areas where we were not able to achieve, especially the main areas of concern being the number of enterprises that we finance and the actual target on jobs that we wanted to create. If we get to the next slide on disbursement to youth-owned enterprises, we achieved 79% at an actual of 188,000 against a target of 239,000. On priority disbursement to priority rural provinces, we achieved 86%, which was an actual of 383,000 against a target of 448,000. On women-owned enterprises, we achieved 92%, which is an actual of 412, let's say, against a target of 488,000. The number of black-owned businesses that we disbursed to, disbursement rather in figures to black-owned enterprises, we achieved a performance of 118%, which is an actual of 783,000 against a target of 665. On corporate performance, which is the next slide, the township disbursements to township enterprises, we achieved 30%, which is we achieved excuse me, Chairperson, I think I've been mixing up my language. So basically on township businesses, my apology, on township business we achieved 30%, which is an actual of 96 million against a target of 324 million. So the K should not have been there. We should apologize for that, except for, I think we should have rounded it up to much more easier for it to be translated. On disbursements of less than 500,000, we're sitting at 80%, which is an actual of 71 million against a target of 89 million. On people with disabilities, it's 40%, which is an actual of 6.3 million against a target of 15.9 million. If you look at the overall customer satisfaction, you can see the target was 85%. The figure is not reflected. We should apologize for not reflecting the figure properly. I will hand over, Chairperson, to the CEO to deal with the rest of the detail of the presentation, starting at slide number 9.
Thank you, Chairperson. Once more, greetings to the Chairperson, Meswelo, the honorable members, the Chairperson of Seda, colleagues, and the acting DG. Let me just quickly go through the narration, really, which is just explaining in detail some of the numbers that the Chairperson has already mentioned. I think it is important for us to mention the fact that the total loan book for sefa as at 31 March 2020 stands at 1.5 billion. Of that number, 902 million is what we have done through our wholesale lending channel. And then the 645 million is what we have done through our direct lending channel. This total of 637 million facilities that were approved, as we have already mentioned, represents 342% of the quarterly target and about 152% of the annual target. The disbursements, 295 million, and then that as well represent 142%. I think as the Chairperson already mentioned, in Q4, the 12,385 SMMEs that received our support, we felt, that resulted in us supporting just over 18,000 jobs. We have dispersed 182 million to Black-owned SMMEs, and then 24 million of that to SMMEs in the township, 71% to women-owned SMMEs, and 40 to youth-owned. The overall organizational collections in Q4 amounted to 75 million, and I will just come and explain some of the challenges that we have seen as one, because of the subdued, economic activities, but also that this particular quarter was smack on with obviously the COVID, as it was announced when we went into level 5 before end of March. And the loan book portfolio at risk stood at 49. This was just as at 31. And I think it is important to mention that this 49 just refers really to the channels, but the 41% that the Chairperson mentioned, it is when we look at all investments that we have done in sefa. The loan book performance, I'm not going to, go through this as we have already explained, except to mention the fact that, the approvals for the year that stands at 1.4 billion, I think once more is a demonstration of the demand for access to finance by the SMMEs in the economy. And then the loan disbursements, again, we are happy to announce the fact that money has gone into the economy. And the good thing being that part of this money that gets recycled in the hands of some of our partners has really gone out to touch as many, SMMEs and maintaining the jobs that we have already talked about. And one will see that in the wholesale SME, 129 million was dispersed, in the microfinance 28, and then through our cooler credit guarantee around 93 million rands. The development impact, without going through this again once more, I think it is important for us to mention that the majority of the jobs that are facilitated and supported are contributed in our environment by the micro enterprises sectors. So which means that if we have got challenges with that particular sector, that is where we tend to fall short in terms of meeting, our annual targets. But it is important. So one can see that all the jobs that have been facilitated, 91% of those jobs actually come from the micro enterprise sector. Again, when we look at the SMMEs financed that we have already mentioned, just to repeat, the SMMEs that we are facilitating, most of those will be contributed by the micro enterprise sector as well. And this table on slide number 16, it is where we go to the targeted groups. And I think it is important to mention the fact that there are those areas where in this current financial year, there are deliberate strategic interventions that we are looking at in ensuring that we actually will go out and achieve some of this. And I think the department having announced the Township Entrepreneurship Fund, that will go a long way in ensuring that, when it comes to the disbursements into townships, this will go a long way in helping us together with the strategies that we will embark on, including, of course, amongst others, facilities to people with disabilities. This is just the spatial provincial impact. I think it is important to mention the fact that it tends to somehow follow the economic patterns of the country. However, I believe that our role is to make sure that where there is a need for us to have deeper penetration and impact in those sectors, we go a long way in making sure that there are plans to go into some of those far-flung areas of the economy. But one can indeed see that Gauteng, it is actually the one that takes the lion's share, but one will realize that when it comes to the SMMEs, we are not having a lot of what we will call the micro enterprises, and those will be seen more in your KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. The post-investment monitoring, I think it is important for us to mention really that the economy, where the economy is, but included with that, the COVID-19 impact has really slowed our collections when it comes to this specific, quarter. One would have seen in the previous slides how well we have done in the previous quarters, but in the last quarter of the financial year 2019/20, there were struggles because some of the SMMEs were starting to feel, the challenges of the economy. And when, unfortunately, the Disaster Management Act was declared by the Honorable President, as you all know, in the previous interactions with this particular committee, we had to provide, a capital holiday, an interest holiday on a lot of the SMMEs that we have done in the lending space as well. So the sefa total collections for Q4, it amounted to, we were expecting, of course, 127 million, and unfortunately, we only achieved 59%, which amounted to 75.2. So there is a lot of work that our colleagues are doing in the post-investment. One, to make sure that we actually safeguard the existence of some of these these businesses. So through the debt relief that we were providing, some of those enterprises that were struggling were given, a hand to make sure that they continue surviving. But two, we are continuing in restructuring some of the businesses so that we can then reschedule the payments over time with the hope that as the economy starts to pick up, some of them will in a way be in a position to start catching up on some of the areas where they were not able to pay sefa in this particular quarter. I will hand over to my colleague, the CFO, just to take us through the financial performance, so that we have got an understanding of where we are standing when it comes to that particular measurement.
Dear honorable members, sefa for Q4 has achieved 79% cost to income ratio, which is above the 100% targeted ratio, and in particular below the 83% target, which meant that sefa did manage to cover its costs and actually did well, as we achieved, we actually achieved less costs versus our income. We are still, unfortunately, struggling in terms of the accumulated impairment provision, which is now sitting at 41% versus the 33%. And in this ratio, we have excluded the direct lending disbursements prior to 1 April, but we do have interventions in place to curb the high impairment provision. In terms of our costs, sefa was able to actually maintain this positive expenditure, especially in relation to our operating expenses, investment properties, and personnel costs, where we did achieve less than anticipated.
Maybe just in conclusion, as we get towards the end, in terms of governance, where we report on the board of directors, and maybe I should, I think we're just showing how we have actually done in terms of the meetings, where we're looking at the corporate plan and budgets, in terms of the sefa materiality and significance framework, and so on. So those are some of the meetings that have happened, where we were having, specific decisions that were taken, including our lending, channel, where we had, meetings that were scheduled. I think one will see that in the last quarter, we made quite a lot of, covered a lot of grounds in providing, the credit guarantee through some of the commercial banks, where we obviously, leverage on this particular product for the commercial banks to utilize their own balance sheet to lend to the sector that would ordinarily not be in a position to attract credit from the commercial banks. So in a nutshell, all the, the board subcommittees were actually scheduled, and they dealt with all the items that have been mentioned in those two slides that I have shown. In conclusion, Chair, the balance scorecard really measures sefa's performance for the 4 quarters. And the quarterly performance is where we look specifically at each quarter. However, the last columns are where we look at cumulative, performance for the whole year. I think it is important for us to mention, as I was saying, that if one was to look at some of the measurements, that earlier on in the year, things were actually going well, but as the economy started struggling, we could see it in some of the programs that we were providing. However, once more, I think it is commendable of sefa to see that it has actually, deployed more than R1 billion into the economy, so that we can sustain, we can support new businesses, and importantly, we are in a position to can create the much needed jobs by this economy. And as I go to the last slide as well, just want to show you the effects of the subdued economy and the COVID-19. If you look at this slide 27 on the collections, you will realize that in both Q1, 2, and 3, we were actually on track and actually even exceeding the values that we were targeting in terms of collections. It was really only in the last quarter where we had challenges because of what one has already explained. And we hope that, over time, as we come out of this pandemic, businesses will really start ensuring that they can support the economy, money coming back, so that we can support many other businesses that are coming to sefa for credit. And with those, I would like to thank you, Honorable Chair.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you, April. Honorable members, here we are. Here are the two presentations by our agencies. I would like members to engage on these two presentations, but I would like the agencies to convince us on their turnaround strategy, because the issue of COVID-19 will stay with us for some times. What is it that they are planning? Because their APPs are there, targets were there, and we have been disrupted. Now I would like to hear them while responding, to convince us that even if we are not in a normal situation, but how best are they going to assist? Because issue of economy is critical, issue of poverty is high, issue of unemployment has increased. Honorable members, over to you now. You will raise your hand if you want to participate. King, you will assist me. King, what are you?
I'm available, Chairperson.
Yes,
Firstly,
honorable member.
I see the hand of Honorable Lubengo.
Yes. Honorable Lubengo.
Honorable April is drinking water.
Honorable April. He has got no jacket today. I think it is cool in Joburg today.
He's in Cape Town.
Meg? He's in Cape Town. My son likes Cape Town. Yo. Why?
Jay, my hands up.
Honorable Kruger.
Honorable Kruger.
And
then
I think it will be Honorable Jacobs.
Honorable Jacobs.
Honorable Klomelang.
Honorable Klomelang.
Those are so far, Chairperson.
Okay.
Honorable Lubengo, Honorable April, Honorable Kruger, Honorable Klomelang, and Honorable Jacobs.
And
my colleague,
person, Honorable Mbele. Sorry, I'm not sure if you can see me.
Okay, I can see you, Honorable Mbele. You are noted. Honorable Mbele.
Okay.
Okay. We can start. Honorable Lubengo.
Thank you, Chairperson. My questions goes to Seda. In their first quarter 3 report, there are listed areas of underachievement listed, such as cooperatives assisted with access to finance, client support through export, exhibition and training, number of informal businesses supported through supplier development program. What progress has been made regarding these areas? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker is Honorable April.
Sorry, Chairperson, can you skip me for now? I'm just still formulating my question.
Okay, progressive, you will indicate. Honorable Kruger.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Seda and sefa, for the informative presentations. Madam Chair, I've got a few questions for Seda and a few questions for sefa. First question to Seda is the footprint in rural areas and in townships. You know, if you look at their offices, they're quite far away from their clients. And my question is, what are they going to do to get their offices closer to those small businesses that need their help? That's the first question. Then the existing, is there any program, you know, in program 1, they talk about helping small businesses, assisting and developing small businesses. But I would like to know, what is the strategy of visiting all the small businesses that they helped before, since 2014? Is there any, can they give us any information about the existing of that small businesses that they helped since 2014? And then, Madam Chair, I would like just to have an indication on the budget for 2021. Is it around 1 billion, or is it going to increase, or is it going to decrease? If they can just give us an indication. And then, Madam Chair, I want to ask them for Seda to come to the committee and give us a presentation on the district ecosystem model that they are working on. I would like to see that model and how it works and how will it benefit our small businesses, especially in the rural areas and of course in the townships. Then, Chair, the sefa. My question to sefa is the post-COVID financial assistance to new ventures. What is the strategy? Because I'm sure the funds are quite the, you know, COVID-19 had a huge, made a huge dent into their funds. And if I look at their repayment rate, it's also low. And I just want to know, sorry, about their strategy of assisting new small businesses, new ventures for 2021. And then the last question, Madam Chair, what is the role that sefa play in the Treasury guarantee scheme to small businesses? You know, that guarantee scheme that Treasury announced, I think it's 200 billion rand, and it's they do it with the banks. And I just want to know what role is sefa playing, because the message I get from small businesses is that the banks is not helping them. And although the government is guarantee 80% of the funds, the banks are struggling to help our small businesses. So I just want to know if sefa is going to play a role in this, because small businesses really need the banks to get onto board. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Kruger. The next speaker is Honorable Hlomelang. Honorable Hlomelang, can you hear me? Honorable Hlomelang, can you hear me? King?
Chair,
Can you assist? Is he still on?
Yes, she's still online, but I don't know whether she can hear us.
Yeah.
Honorable In the meantime, Chair, I think we can go back to Honorable April because he's indicating that he's ready.
Okay, Honorable April. Honorable April, can you hear me?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I am ready and I have somehow managed to formulate my questions properly. I want to firstly and foremostly thank the departments for their presentations. I think during this epidemic and what is currently happening in the country, I must applaud the department for the work that they are continuously doing in trying to make sure that what we've got left of the economy we can continue to sustain. So I want to say big ups to you guys for the good work that you are doing, both in Seda and sefa, as it were. However, I've got about 3 questions that I'm going to ask, of which the first one is, can you tell me why did sefa overspend on black-owned business but underspend on the rest of the targets, especially on women, townships, and people living with disabilities? Is this a capacity problem? Could you maybe just indicate what is happening with regards to that? And could sefa also explain why it is reporting that it achieved and exceeded its job targets for Q4, but on the annual targets, the graph shows that it missed its job target? Is this the cumulative value, or what? Can you just maybe explain to us what is happening there? And then over 70% of small to micro and medium enterprises, SMMEs, in South Africa fold within or break up or don't exist within the first 5 to 7 years of inception. The mortality rate is very high. Of the 12,385 SMMEs supported, could sefa please give the committee more detail on their survivalist age? How many SMMEs and cooperatives have been in business for less than 5 years, 3 years, and 2 years? If you could do that, we would appreciate it. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable April. The next speaker will be Honorable Mbele.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to the colleagues, and thank you for the presentations from Seda and sefa. It's 3 questions from my side, 1 for Seda and 2 for sefa, please. The first question to Seda relates to the issue of business advisors. Which, to my understanding, is really the core of the implementation of its mandates. Because if one was to paint a picture, the ideal scenario when it comes to Seda assisting emerging enterprises is that a micro entrepreneur or an informal business would approach sefa to say, I'm struggling to manage my cash flow and my finances, or I've been struggling to access credits, and then Seda does the analysis and helps them to identify the gaps and to address them with training, interventions, or other technical assistance. But it's been raised before in the committee, and we heard it as well in the slide, that there's a challenge around capacity in terms of those business advisor vacancies, as well as at times the caliber of the advisors on hand. In order to address those. So in terms of, for example, the plan for the professionalization of business advisory services, there was mention of that discussion paper. I'd just like to know who has Seda been in consultation with in terms of the other stakeholders that, excuse me, that are working in that space. Specifically, what kind of best practice models, what kind of insights are they looking into and able to bring on board in order to improve their performance in that regard? My second question, which is for sefa, from slide 15, where it was mentioned that the majority of jobs that are facilitated, that are strengthened in terms of the development impacts, are happening in that micro enterprise sector. And that obviously speaks to the importance of microfinance as an intervention to assist. My concern is that, and here I'm speaking from the lens of my very first job about 12 years ago, in the non-profit philanthropy space, where you find that all the big donors are very reluctant to get into the community level micro grant space because of the weakness of organizations operating there, weak systems, and also because the administration to disbursement ratio when it comes to the finances makes it very, very unattractive, shall I say, you know. So I know that there's generally a systemic disincentive to be very intensively engaged in the microfinance space. But it's obviously important given the development impact and the big gap that exists. So can SEFA just maybe shed some light and give us a clearer picture on what are the forward steps, the outlook around expanding and strengthening in the microfinance space, maybe partnering with sort of networks of stockfiles and any other organic vehicles that are already there, that are many people's first port of call for microfinance, given that the commercial banking sector is not very helpful in that regard. And then my third question is in terms of the Small Business Innovation Fund. There was mention of it once or twice in the presentation, and it's an issue that I'm watching quite keenly, because it was a new initiative announced by the minister during quarter 3. So it should be about let's say two quarters or so into implementation. And the important thing about this fund, from my understanding, is that it's in that mold of what one might call, capital venture funding, angel investor funding, in identifying, supporting, and strengthening new ideas and helping them get on their legs and to build up momentum. Can they please speak a little bit more to the progress so far with the implementation of the Small Business Innovation Fund, in particular the networking and stakeholder consultation and partnership that's happening with other VC funds or angel investors that are working there, because we know it's a very small space in South Africa, very, very limited progress being made, but so much opportunity if we can harness the assets we have, everything from indigenous knowledge to anything else you can think of that we have, because we have many brilliant minds and great innovation happening out there. But when it comes to accessing it, formalizing it, and amplifying it to become a big economic player, it's a very rough road to walk. Thank you, Chairperson. That's all from my side.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Can I invite Honorable Hlomelang? Are you still on?
Yes,
Honorable
Chair.
Hlomelang, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, Chair.
Over.
Morning, how are you?
Over.
Thank you.
Fine. Over to you, babe.
Oh, good. Chair, I have 2 questions. Let me also welcome the report. My first question will be, can Seda report about the number of cooperatives that they have assisted to become big companies? Because I think they should have done the assessment in terms of the cooperatives that they have assisted. Do we have any cooperatives that can be turned into a large companies? And if so, how many? Can we get an indication? If not today, can in the next meeting get an indication and there are areas where they are located? My second question, Chair, I've seen in the slide the input that number of SMMEs were supposed to be graduated. I just want to understand this graduation. Does Seda mean that those SMMEs are financially viable? Will they be able to stand on their own? Will they be able to create jobs? Or what do they mean when they say that they have graduated? And if they experience the problem after their graduation, will Seda still be able to assist so that they can go further to sefa for financial assistance or any other assistance that will be needed? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Shomelang. The next speaker is Honorable Jacobs.
Sorry, Chair.
Over to you.
Chairperson, it's King here. Can we note the hand of Honorable TK?
Okay, noted. Honorable TK, you can get in.
Thank you, Chairperson. And greetings to both Seda and sefa and the colleagues. Mine, I only have one question, but my question will go to both agencies, Seda and sefa. Before COVID-19 saga, right, the department seemed to be improving in terms of performance. Now, given the COVID-19 impact and the instability within the departments, both Seda and sefa, in terms of people acting, especially in senior positions, I would like both agencies maybe to give us a picture. How has this affected their performance, and how are they planning as well to bring about stability? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable TK. Honorable Jacobs.
Thank you, Chair. Greetings, colleagues. Let's record our appreciation for the two presentations. Both departments have done well under the circumstances. But I'd just like to make some general comments and then specific questions. I think we know that we can't just meet compliance for the sake of compliance. We need to look at, if the global question is, we have 1.5 billion rand invested in small business from the South African government. What does that 1.5 billion buys us? So we can't just have a tick box exercise where we say X amount of this, X amount of that. The targets are well met, and with the exception of the townships of women and youth and disability, I think that is well noted. I'd like to hear what are the plans going forward, because those are the vulnerable communities. Those are the communities that need the support most of all. Those are positive discriminations. Whilst the DA and Freedom Front Plus takes us to court for having broad-based Black economic empowerment, I think the majority of us know why it's important to focus on youth, why it's important to focus on women and township entrepreneurs. So I think we need to find better ways of working with those voiceless and marginalized communities and show the doomsayers that indeed those communities can be successful entrepreneurs. So we need to have a micro and informal centric approach. We need to formalize the informal, but at the same time, we also need to ensure it's better to help those that need the help the greatest. I think that for me is just a key broad point. I think the Seda have spoken about cooperatives and the Gazelle program. You also spoke about the 24 township hubs. We have more than 24 townships across our country. So we know where the big townships are. On the Cape Flats, it is in Kailicha, it's in Mitchell's Plain, it's in Langa, it's on the townships. So there's a cross-section of towns. I'd like to see that we have footprints in all of our townships across South Africa. So I see in the Western Cape, there's only one township, it's in Kraaifontein. Now, I agree Kraaifontein is a need, but I think there's bigger townships that can also benefit from this. So I'd like to see what is the plan for us to have these investments in our township. In the Seda, you spoke about you didn't have the capacity to distribute the ICT assets. It was raised as one of the issues. I'm not sure if you can just expand on that. I think you also said that you didn't have a lot of seminars and you couldn't do some of these district-based training. I think we are all now almost 100 days into the COVID pandemic, and we're all finding the online platform. So I want to encourage the leadership, especially your CEOs and your top leadership, to know how to work the online platforms and to get familiar, because this is the new normal. This is the way we're going to communicate. We also want to encourage both the agencies to do online presentations to each of these districts so that you can spread the message. If you plan properly, you can get the message to the people on the ground. A big challenge is just data and the data costs. But we must make means to ensure that in each of our halls we have Wi-Fi free connectivity so that our young people and the marginalized can access these technology. There was an issue around the EU funding. I'd like to get a sense of what was the nature of that EU fund, how big, and what was the impact. Is it an annual thing or is it just a once-off? I'm very excited about the district information management system, and I share Honorable Kruger's sentiment that we want to have a presentation across this and see how we can get district-based targets for Seda and sefa, district-based focus, so that we know exactly in each of the areas, these are the benefits. So we can have a targeted approach of each of these districts in line with what the President is talking about. I think we are concerned about the impairment cases. So I think something we would like to hear strategies around how we're going to deal with the impairment cases. And then also I share and align myself to Honorable who talks about the Innovation and Angels Fund. There's many private sector funding, small business funding, startups, virtual capital, and we'd like to see how we can crowd in. So I know we're very competitive, or we would like to control our public finance, but we need to see how we can leverage all the money for small business across the private sector, across all the foundations, across all the platforms, so that we can leverage more than just the 1.5 billion, but more money for small business. For now, that is some of my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Jacobs. I will now give the agencies an opportunity to can respond to those questions. Dr. Ndlovu, I'll start with Seda.
Okay. No, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Thank you, honorable members, for those questions. I'm going to touch on a couple of things that were asked, and then I'm going to ask my colleagues. I've got Ms. Majola, Mr. Jafta, and Mr. Mabani, as well as Mr. Mpangalazi, just to add on the specifics of the questions that honorable members asked. I think first, Chairperson, I will start with your one, where you asked the agencies to just convince you that they are dealing with COVID-19 appropriately, the challenges that have been, received through COVID-19. I think, Chair, from us as a board, we are very worried as well to say that, how are we going to ensure that the SMMEs who are depending on us continue to receive the same level of services that they've been receiving, if not better. Chairperson, what we have done as a board, we have reviewed our business strategy, and we have encouraged executives as well to just continue to review the strategy, our business plan, how we are doing things, to see if there are opportunities there, if there are challenges, well as opportunities to do things differently. This has been our first priority when we found ourselves in the middle of COVID-19. What we also did, and what the executives have been doing as well, is reviewing the workforce locations, and just looking at, with the lockdown, how work can continue when people cannot go to their workplaces, when people cannot travel. So how do we do that? So with that, what we've done, we've also obviously had to look at our policies and procedures. What is it that we can do differently to ensure that work continues, even if we are on various locations? So IT has come under a lot of pressure on that one, because for most of the work that we had to do, most of it had to be done digitally. So digitally, I know I heard Honorable Jacobs talk about the issue of digital platforms. So if you see the work that we have been doing, most of it has been digitally. So maybe the first week or two, we were trying to see how we can best utilize digital platforms, the work that has already been started, how we can fast track it, and the fast tracking has happened. So we've had a number of webinars, we have a number of meetings. There's I think the acting CEO spoke about the online coaching and mentoring. Our services providers, we have sort of spoken to them so that they revisit how the channels of their delivery. So lots of training and coaching and mentoring are now being given on online platforms. So digitalization plan has been something that we have prioritized as a board, as well as our management. We've also revisited our crisis and continuity plans to say that how do we then deal with the risks? What are some of the mitigation action plans that we can put in place to ensure that the risks, such as your cyber security and poor performance, how do we deal with all of those ones? And we have looked at, we have identified potential points of failure and put in mitigation plans, action plans to ensure that we minimize that, and we are able to achieve the objectives that we've set ourselves for. But we have not only looked at it internally, what we have done as well, we have had people looking into our entrepreneurs, to look at our entrepreneurs, to change, to have a digital transformation for them as well, because most of them, you found that they've been happy to just do their work without digitalization. Unfortunately, right now, everybody has to use technology, and we have been at the forefront of trying to assist our clients to also make use of the opportunities that COVID-19 has given via the technological framework. I also wanted to touch on the issue of I think it was Honorable Kruger who asked the issue of footprint in township and rural areas. And I want to just, because this is also an ongoing question that members keep on asking. And for us as well, we are seeing it as a very critical priority point for members, for ourselves, for even for our clientele out there. We have acknowledged in previous meetings that we can do better when it comes to townships and rural areas. And in fact, we have looked at programs that talks to that. You look at the spazas, you look at all the other new programs that we've just implemented that talks to the townships, and that also talks to rural area. I'm happy that Honorable Kruger has asked that we come and really talk on the issue of our district facilitation model, that because for this question, every time when we are asked this question, we are always talking about this district model approach that we have adopted. So it would really be good, Chairperson, if we can come and really just explain what is it all about and how is it going to help us to ensure that our footprint is enlarged in those townships and rural areas where we don't have much of a presence. So it's something that we have adopted, and you will see in future meetings, members, you will see our reporting would change so that it can speak to directly the districts where we have our presence, and it can also talk to the districts where we are planning to do more than what we have done. So that's what I wanted to just emphasize on the footprint in township and rural areas. Our presentation, though, also just covered some of these areas that we have started having a presence on, and we also spoke on the issues of locations. But we will then in future report so that it's much easier to see where we are in these various townships and rural areas according to the districts. I think lastly, Chairperson, I just wanted to speak to Honorable TK's question on how is this instability of vacancies affecting our performance. Once again, this is a question that was asked seriously because I know that members are concerned about this rate of vacancies. But what if I can give some assurance to members to say that we have the robust succession planning policy, as I mentioned before, where all the executives, there's cross learning into various departments, so that any executive is ready to take on any position in where the vacancy exists. So, as for example, last time I spoke the issue for CEO to say that she is on suspension, but we do have Umas Majola as our acting CEO, and she's fully familiar with the organization. She has been trained to do some of the work of the CEO. So we're not finding ourselves in a place where we have to start from scratch. We have people already who are up to date with what the issues are and what the challenges are, and have been trained in order to take it up. This doesn't mean, though, that we will take forever in replacing the positions should the position become vacant. We are all the time thinking ahead on how we can do it and have partners working with us to ensure that the processes are fast-tracked and we've got people in places. I think now what our challenge would be in maybe a delay would be the merger that is gaining momentum. That's going to happen anytime. So with that one, obviously, we don't know what the impact would be on the positions. Thus, we will not rush in closing vacancies when in the merger we might not be needing that vacancy to start with. So all of these things we are aware of, and we have put action plans in place to ensure that it is mitigated and the effect on service delivery is minimized. Chairperson, I think when it comes now to the specifics, I'm going to let the executives just touch on some of the questions that honorable members have asked from us. Thank you, Chairperson. I'll hand over to Ms. Major.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honorable Chair of the Portfolio Committee. Our acting CFO will handle the question on the budget, and my colleague from Seda Technology will deal with the question on graduation of clients from incubators, as well as the work around assisting clients with access to zero-rated platforms to make sure that those that don't or cannot afford data are not disadvantaged from benefiting from government services. I will request the DG just to explain the EU-funded support program, because it's based in the department and working with the department and the agencies. On how we are adapting our business delivery models in light of COVID. As our board chairperson has said, we've been hard at work to make sure that we continue our operations in light of COVID. Currently, we are using a combination of schedules, appointments with clients, because we do have the required number of staff in line with the regulations that rotate to be present at our branches for those instances where clients need to have face-to-face interaction with staff. But other than that, we are utilizing online platforms for training, for briefing sessions, for workshops, and webinars. Excuse me. Today, we have a virtual youth conference in the Free State, where a minimum of 200 young people will be participating in that conference, and they have RSVP'd. The intention is to give at least 30 of them an opportunity to pitch their businesses to potential buyers or markets. So that's the type of instruments that we are utilizing to continue with our work. With the assistance of the EDSE program, we're currently developing an e-learning platform that will be utilized mainly by our business advisors and service providers to offer mentorship and service providers. We have developed a concept document which we have presented to the department, and this should be up and running towards the end of August, while we are utilizing the other existing digital platforms. We've also digitized some of our learning content, and it's available on YouTube. We also extensively utilizing all our social media platforms to share information. We use links to keep track of the number of people that do attend those events, so that we are able to go back to them at a later stage for follow-ups as well. On the question that was raised on indicators or targets that were not achieved in the third quarter, all of those indicators were achieved by the end of the financial year in the fourth quarter, with the exception of cooperatives that access finance from financial institutions. The challenge with cooperatives accessing finance from financial institutions is that the funding criteria for commercial banks, for instance, requirements for collateral. Sometimes cooperatives are not able to afford the repayments right at the point where they start their businesses. So that makes them unattractive to commercial banks to offer them access to finance. In most instances, we assist cooperatives to access finance mainly from government departments and agencies. It's very few of them that are able to access finance from financial institutions. With the Gazelle program, we did not necessarily underperform. The reason we didn't achieve the target that is on the APP is because the program is not continuing this year. So we didn't take the new group. We didn't have a new intake that would have allowed us to achieve that number of 70 that is on the APP. So we continue to support the groups that were already in the pipeline to end the program by the end of the 2019 financial year. In response to Honorable Kruger's question, our board chair has already touched on it. Yes, we do realize that our footprint does not cover all the far-flung areas, Hence, we keep going back to our district ecosystem facilitation model, and we do welcome the invitation for us to come and brief the committee on the model which we've shared with the department, and we are aligning to Quota as well. I think that is also related to Honorable Mr. Faisal Jacob's question and request on the presentation of the district ecosystem facilitation model. There was also a request from Honorable Kruger on the database of all clients that we've assisted since 2014. We have that information. We've sent it back to our branches just for them to confirm all of those that are still operational. We will send it to the committee, if not by end of this week, very early next week. There was also a question on our strategy for assisting existing clients in light of COVID-19. We've divided these clients into 3 streams. One is the emergency stream for businesses that are in very dire positions, and those that are affected but not to the same extent as the first stream, and those that have been minimally affected. And we've done critical planning exercise for the stream to come up with specific interventions for all of them. Being, I think, turnaround plan for the first stream, and prioritize access to finance where is possible. We are also linking our strategy to the business viability support program that the department is working on for existing businesses, because we can't have a program that goes on the tangent compared to what the department is working. So this intervention will be linked to the department's business viability support program. Is marketing strategy and marketing interventions for the second stream, as well as sector specific mentorship. There was also a previous request from Honorable Kruger for us to come back to the committee with this strategy. Will also be submitting this information to the committee. On Honorable Mbele's question on our business advisors, we've done a career pathing model for our business advisors. Is kind of our roadmap that indicates the critical competencies and skills on which we need to develop our business advisors. We also shared with the committee at the previous meeting that one of the things we did in the previous financial year is practicals on the business coaching mentorship program for our business advisors, where an experienced business coach works with a business advisor on a client's business to impart the practical skills, because they are well experienced, they've undergone through a lot of training. The part that we need to crystallize is the practical mentorship skills. When we were working on the discussion paper, we had roadshows throughout the country, but we also had a very small, close group of stakeholders that we finalized the discussion paper with. We are part of a community of practice on business advising that is convened by the services Seda, and that's where we get as much input as possible into our programs. Amongst the list of those that were consulted for input is the Institute of Management Consulting, IBASA, the Institute of Business Advising for South Africa, Comensa, universities, as we know that almost all universities in the country now are involved in entrepreneurship, and they develop their own programs on entrepreneurship. Is SIPA, as well as independent service providers for best practice. In also improving standards for business advising in South Africa, we are actually benchmarking with 2 international standards that are already recognized by the South African Bureau of Standards. And we currently have a SAPS has put a technical committee in place to adapt those international standards to the South African environment. In response to Honorable Member Tlumelang on number of co-ops assisted, our chairperson touched on the large-scale co-ops that we assisted throughout the country. The large-scale co-ops, we define them in terms of the likely socio-economic impact that they are likely to make within the communities within which they are operating, on the number of jobs that they are likely to create, or the turnover that is likely to result from those cooperatives. In over and above the co-ops that are contained in this presentation, we have a lot of other cooperatives, because in addition to PTY Ltd businesses that we assist on a daily basis at our branches, we also do assist cooperatives. My colleague, the Senior Manager for the Technology Support Program, will handle her question on how do we continue to assist clients that graduate from incubators. Honorable TK's question, if I heard him correctly, I think the question was related to how have we adapted our delivery models in light of COVID, or if it's related to governance issues. Our board chair has already handled that question. So I'm going to request my colleague, Mr. Taven Jafta, to speak on the other 2 issues around access, around clients that graduate from incubators. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members, thank you for the opportunity. Like the acting CEO has indicated, we've done extensive work around the issue of digital platforms, but I'll touch on this on the question by Honorable Jacobs. On the question of graduates, the incubation program follows a very structured continuum. So entrepreneurs are incubated for a period of between 1 year to 5 years. For the 5 years that they are incubated, they have a series of milestones that they need to achieve in terms of their business model. So it's how to get the business model to go from problem solution fit into product market fit. So once they've achieved the problem solution fit within the incubator or accelerator or hub program, and once they've achieved a minimum viable product or a minimum viable service, or they've achieved their milestones in terms of what has been set within their growth plan, they then graduate out of the incubator. The reason why they have to follow a structured continuum is that we don't allow them to become overly dependent on the incubator. They have to graduate within the ecosystem. They have to graduate within market segments, and they have to be able to supply into a market. Once they graduate out of the incubator, we then link them to different market opportunities. We then also put them in what we call a post-incubation facility or post-incubation program, where we link them to venture capital funds. We link them to different DFIs, in particular our sister agency, which is sefa, but also other DFIs like the NEF, the IDC, and we also then link them to the venture capital program that we support with some of the venture capital funds that are available. So we link them to those specific funds. Where there is post-incubation facilities or shared facilities, we then also graduate them into those shared facilities where they have access to shared machines, equipment to continuously produce the products based on the MPV that we the minimal viable product that they have developed during the period in the incubation. So we don't leave them once they've graduated, but we just provide them with a different set of interventions to grow the business. On the question from Honorable Jacobs on the digitization and platforms, I think we've done extensive work there. We've made provisions to the Presidential Council for the 4th Industrial Revolution around zero rating of certain platforms. So we've done a submission for zero rating of both education platforms as well as business development platforms, where the Minister of Communication and Digital Technologies are considering our submission. And if we get that right, some of the platforms will be zero rated, and it will allow for easier access to entrepreneurs, but also young people. So that submission is there. The Minister of Telecommunication or Communication is the only one that can zero rate. We also had discussions with the MNOs, the mobile network operators, and even there we have made provision for the issue of zero rating. We've also made a submission for free data at 5 gigabytes to all citizens, especially entrepreneurs, so that they are able to, have access to data to be able to do some of the work, because that is in the last 3 months, we've realized that data is becoming a big challenge for entrepreneurs. So we've made a submission again to the Presidential Council on the issue of free data and how free data will work and how citizens will get a allocation of about 5 gigabytes over the next 6 months as the economy recovers. On the township hubs and the digital hubs, I think I agree with Honorable Jacobs. We are doing extensive work on expanding the hubs within certain townships, especially bigger townships. And we have a plan within the midterm expenditure framework to roll out about 41 hubs over the next 3 years. So there's a lot of work that we are doing there in terms of these digital hubs. The digital hubs will do 2 things for us. One, it will democratize access in terms of digital platforms. And secondly, it will drive our work around import substitution, but localization of digital platforms. So the digital hubs in particular will drive our work on how to develop local platforms, how to develop local blockchain solutions, fintech solutions, agri-tech solutions for us through the digital hubs. We're also investing in the infrastructure within these hubs so that they have broadband, fiber, and entrepreneurs in these hubs have access to fiber so that they can do some of the work that they're supposed to do. We're also looking at gaming platforms where we want local games to be developed because we see a huge market opportunity, as well as drone technology. And the acting CEO will on Friday launch our first drone accelerator in Gauteng, in Ekurhuleni, where we're going to launch our first set of 14 drone startups that we've developed in different technology verticals, cybersecurity, agri, construction, where drones will be deployed in terms of those sectors. And the city of Ekurhuleni is supporting our initiative there. So we're doing extensive work on the digital hubs, Honorable Jacobs, and we believe that if we get it right, we will start seeing local technologies being developed in South Africa for the African market. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Can I invite Sefa? Or before that, honorable members, do you have follow-up questions before we go to the other agents?
Chairperson, it's King. I think the acting CFO for SEFA wants to respond to some of the questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm the acting CFO from Seda. I'm answering the question with regards to the budget of financial year 2021. Our current budget of financial 2021 is sitting at an amount of 928,800,000. In December 2018, the medium-term expenditure framework was reduced by an amount of 19 million over a period of 3 years. And the net effect of the cut of 2018-19 into our current financial year is an amount of 6 million. Due to economic constraint, again, in December 2019, National Treasury reduced our medium-term expenditure budget allocation by an amount of 61 million. The total budget cut as a result of the Treasury's cut from 2018-19 to date is an amount of 69 million. Further, the reason why we had an amount of 1 billion in the financial year 2019-20 is because we received an approval from National Treasury to utilize the surplus of 2018-19. That amount was about 63 million, and it was an additional amount that was not normally available to Seda. We were fortunate that after requesting an approval from National Treasury, it was approved. Lastly, we have other programs like National Gazeles that has ended. The amount was about 30 million that we had. It was part of our 1 billion budget that we are not having this year. As a result, our total decrease in budget is an amount of 100 million. Thank you.
Chairperson is King. The acting CEO has raised her hand. Ms. Majola.
Okay, she can get in.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to request that the DG addresses Honorable Jacob's question on the EU-funded program. Thank you.
Okay. DG, over to you. DG, can you hear me?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I thought I was gonna talk about the sefa has already answered their questions so that I can cover everything if there are issues that I need to cover.
Accepted. Can we now move to sefa, honorable members? Chairperson Sefa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We're going to split the answers between myself and the colleagues. Maybe just to note, I think before we deal directly with the questions, is just to highlight on because I think in your opening comments before you allowed for questions, Chair, you raised the question around what interventions are we going to make. Just to emphasize that for the actual performance annually, because at times it can be confusing, it's important that we refer you to the second last slide on the balance scorecard. You'll get a clear indication of what the performance looks like. I appreciate, Chair, that we can't allow for mediocrity, but the key thing that I think Honorable Kruger also raised was that the key shortfalls were in the common areas that we've always had a challenge with, and that's where the turnaround is supposed to be focusing on the township-based enterprises, where the performance was low, and on disabilities. That's where the main areas are. So if you look at the Q4 performance, it may be, it's important. If you look at that slide, it will show that the cumulative figures, although they are unaudited, as you know, we're still going through to finalize our audit process. So the indication as it stands there, you would see, Chairperson, that apart from the other three, the areas that are raised where the shortfalls are, the average performance, rather the minimum performance on all other indicators, the lowest of them all is on disbursement to youth, which stood at 79%. The rest of the performance indicators are above 80, basically above 86% going upwards. No, sorry, I must also indicate that the other one was actually, yeah. So it's the 79% on disbursement to youth and 80% on SMMEs and number of SMMEs and COPS finance. The rest are above 86%, if one would indicate. So perhaps the other issue that I'd want to respond to, which was a question related to acting positions, I think it was raised by Honorable Langa. My colleagues, the acting CFO, acting CEO, and Merciful will respond to other questions in accordance with who amongst the honourable members raising. The stability at SEFA, we are pleased, Chair, to report that particularly the issue of the CEO, we trying to get a finality on that matter, although that finality would be coming as an interim measure as we clear the issues around the integration and merger of the institutions. So we expect that within a month or so, we would get a much more indicative position as far as the CEO position of SEFA is concerned. We've gone through all the processes, and between us and the ministry, there's a direction as to how exactly we should handle the process to its finality. So I guess at the right time, perhaps within a month or so, we should be able to indicate to you what intervention are we making to bring stability on that front. At executive level, the only vacancy that exists, which is currently being handled by the head of direct lending, is that of wholesale lending. And as a board, we've taken a position that we should not necessarily be going to fill that position, rather continue an arrangement where the incumbent can in fact handle the responsibility as a consolidated responsibility instead of filling vacancies. And we do this mindful of the fact that we will be dealing with the issues of the merger within a very short space of time. It doesn't make sense for us to be increasing the number of positions at executive level in that light. The rest of the positions, we are quite stable at SEFA, except where there would be a bit of shortfalls and we're talking about much more lower positions. There'll be shortfalls, for instance, in the property portfolio as we try to strengthen our capacity to manage that. But overall, generally, we can't say there's a crisis. That's the point that I want to raise, Chair. So in the main, I'm saying there is no instability per se, except perhaps at the main, the issue of resolving the position of the CEO. The rest of the positions within SEFA, we are on top of it as a board and the management of SEFA. I'll hand over to Ntate Molepo to handle some of the questions, and the rest will follow. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Maybe just to handle the questions that came from Honorable April, and then my colleague will deal with the others from Honorable Kruger and Honorable Mbele. Maybe just to start off with Honorable April. Yes, we obviously overachieved, not maybe overspent. I would have thought that would be a commendation. However, yes, you're correct that on the other developmental impact, we fell short. However, it is not necessarily that throughout the year we were not in a position to really meet some of those. If one looks at Q1, especially that slide number 26, we'll see that there were areas where we have shown overachievement. But this is largely and primarily driven by the underperformance, from our micro, lending programs, where we know that majority of the beneficiaries in the deep rural areas are women. And then when it comes to the issue of the jobs as well in Q4, yes, we achieved, overachieved there, but also I think in Q1, again on slide number 26. But yes, you're correct. The cumulative number for the year has actually, it fell short of us achieving, 100%. We are just 9%, I think, shy of the 100. But once more, again, by that particular sector where we tend to get, high volumes of jobs as we fund some of the businesses. The last one that I want to deal with as well is the issue of the 70% that you mentioned of your SMMEs in South Africa. where we normally have challenges between 5 and 7 years. I think it is important for us strategically to mention the fact that the DFIs and sefa in particular, our role is to address market failures. You will find that many of the businesses that we are funding, Honorable Chair, are those that are ordinarily not in a position to actually attract credit from your commercial banks. And the reason being that it is mostly those businesses that are startups, that do not have the collateral, that do not have a track record that your commercial banks will be looking at. So that is really where I believe we're playing a role. And therefore, when you look at many of those SMMEs that have been funded, Honorable April, you will realize that it would surely be things that are ranging between 6 and 3 years that we have funded. And of course, once a business has gained confidence and they are in a position to have a balance sheet and their performance have stabilized, then it becomes easier for them to go to a commercial bank to get credit. But the characteristics of these businesses in the main are constraints around market access. Many of them, you'll find that they've got a single customer, the issue of cash flow management as well. I mean, now even unfortunately with the issues around COVID, the main thing was really around cash flow management and of course management capabilities. Once the jockey on any business that you support is not the right jockey, that particular horse will not be in a position to can win. So these constraints, therefore, unfortunately, contribute towards the high mortality rate that you have mentioned. But sefa as an institution in ensuring that we somehow increase the sustainability, we increase longevity of these businesses. We have got the mentorship program, where through our business support, we go in to make sure that we can help handhold these businesses in order for them to really go beyond the time frames that you have mentioned. And once businesses have gone beyond those years, we know that unless something obviously drastically happens, they will actually survive. But I think just to emphasize, yes, in a number of these developmental impact, we fell shy, but I think the good news being that we are above 75% because of the cumulative numbers that we are measuring right at the end of the year. And my colleague to me will be talking specifically around some of the programs that will be introduced to try and make sure that around your micro enterprises, your rural areas, how is it that we are going to start addressing those with specific programs that will be introduced in the current financial year. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I will start by responding to Honorable Kruger's question around the National Treasury guarantee, the 200 billion guarantee scheme with the commercial banks. sefa did not play a role in that specific scheme. The scheme was designed between the commercial banks and National Treasury and the Reserve Bank directly. However, we are aware of the challenges that you quoted, Honorable Kruger, around SMEs battling to access the funding, mainly because the commercial banks really stuck to their old risk assessment criteria and also were focusing on the existing clients instead of new SMMEs. So sefa did not play a role, but we are abreast with the issues that are taking place there in terms of that guarantee scheme. And then the second aspect I'd like to address, Honorable Chair, is an aspect around the Small Business and Innovation Fund, which Honorable Mbele raised. Honorable Mbele is correct, Chair, that the fund was launched in the third quarter of the previous financial year, and the sefa team worked extensively to ensure that there was some traction towards implementation of the scheme. In doing that, we partnered with about 4 different incubators, which are also Seda supported incubators, to ensure that as a portfolio we have a coordinated approach. And those incubators were approved grant funding specifically to forward to SMMEs in this very startup stage and ideation stage. So it wasn't in the form of a loan, but it was in the form of a grant, and a total of 70 million rand across 4 different incubators spread throughout the country. We partnered with there. And then also, as part of the Small Business and Innovation Fund, we partnered with 10 different intermediaries who play in the early stage SMME funding space. And there they received a combination of grant and loan funding towards supporting SMMEs. In total, the Small Business and Innovation Fund committed just shy of 410 million in the previous financial year towards early stage SMMEs. And then the balance of the funds were actually redirected through a process through DSBD to the COVID emergency funds to ensure that we had some budget available to fund the SMME relief program, which we implemented in the first quarter of this year. The Small Business and Innovation Fund, in a sense, has transformed into what we now know as the Township Entrepreneurship Fund, which then brings me to the third point that Honorable Kruger and Honorable Mbele and Honorable Jacobs touched on, around what is it that sefa is going to do to ensure that we play a sustainable role in the township areas and specifically for informal businesses. To date, sefa's microfinance model has been heavily reliant on 2 of the biggest microfinance players in the country, which is the Small Enterprise Foundation and Pagamani Foundation. Those have, in the main, been the key drivers of our microfinance products. However, with the funding in the current financial year and with work that has been done with our executive authority as well as Seda, there are a number of programs that are going to be implemented specifically targeting businesses that operate in townships and in the informal sector. Those programs include the first one, which Honourable Chair, that the committee is aware of, which is the SPAZA support program, which will ensure that we address the funding gap in that particular sector. There are additional programs that have already been launched by the Honourable Minister, which we are implementing together with Seda, which include a bakeries and confectionaries program. We also implementing an auto body repair and mechanics program, fruit and vegetable hawkers for hairdressers and personal care, as well as for chesanyamas and for cooked food. And then lastly, informal clothing and textile program. And all these programs have been designed from a portfolio perspective to address 3 key areas. One being that the informal businesses that are operating in these programs will have the opportunity to formalize by registering with SARS, SIPC, and UIF. And number two, and that will be in the main facilitated through Seda. Number two, it would be market access. As we are aware, Honourable Chair, that the biggest issue in terms of ensuring that we fund informal businesses that are now transforming to become formal is that they need a proven market so that we can are able to fund them sustainably. And DSBD for each of these programs has designed a market facilitation element to it. And then the third one being the funding, which would then be provided by sefa. And all of these programs will be implemented at concessionary rates, which will ensure that the informal businesses are not necessarily overburdened right at the beginning with high interest rates from a repayment perspective. Some of the programs we are implementing with commercial banks. As you're aware, the SPASA support program is being implemented with commercial banks through our cooler credit guarantee, and the same will apply with the auto body repairs and mechanics program. Thank you, Chair.
Hello? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Chair. We can hear you, Chair.
Are you done, Chairperson?
Yes, we're done. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I invite? Can I invite the DG? Or before the DG, honorable members who are left with 20 minutes. Do you have some follow-up questions before the DG respond? Honorable members, you are fine. Silence means consent. Thank you. DG. Yeah. Okay, Honorable Jacob, you have something?
No. I'm saying I'm covered, Chair. Thank you. We are covered.
Thank you. Thank you. DG, over to you.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the opportunity. There are just a few issues that I thought I should maybe make some inputs. The first one, I think, is a very important one, which is the credit guarantee scheme, which unfortunately was designed by National Treasury, the Reserve Bank, as well as the commercial banks, without our participation. But we are engaging National Treasury on it because it's clear that that scheme is not that successful. Banks are very, very cautious when it comes to lending to SMMEs. So we are engaging them because one of the things we are proposing is that we have a cooler credit guarantee scheme, which is not fully capitalized. So if they can look at giving some of the money or supporting the cooler credit guarantee scheme, which is a scheme that we are utilizing, for example, to support the spaza shops. We're also looking at utilizing it to support more informal business intervention. So we are engaging with them because we really want to push for this engagement. So there was an engagement, for example, last week where this issue was raised, and we continue to raise it together with the Banking Association of South Africa, because they are using that structure. Maybe even the PC can invite them to come and present to the PC, because that's a lot of money that we can really utilize to benefit our SMMEs. Then the second issue that I thought I should further clarify, so that the PC does not come back later and say, you said it was going to be a merger. We are in the process of developing a business case, which will go to the national cabinet for a decision on whether are we merging Seda and sefa, or we establish a new entity, which will mean we collapse Seda and sefa. So that decision has not been taken by cabinet. We are finalizing the study. We decided to get people from outside to advise us, because it becomes a problem if we advise ourselves and they're choosing what we think is the best solution. So we got an independent expertise who are assisting us with that process. We'll be getting that through to Cabinet so that a decision can be taken by Cabinet on how the process of Seda and sefa should unfold. And then lastly, Chair, on the EU, this is a program that was entered into, it's a partnership between the government of the Republic of South Africa and the European Union under the program called Employment Promotion through the SME Support Program. It's led by us as a Department of Small Business Development, but Department of Agriculture, they're also participating in it. It includes a number of projects. For example, they're assisting us with the work under the SMME index. They assisted us through the program that was presented by Seda today. They also assisted us, for example, in terms of looking at how we can position Seda as an ecosystem facilitator rather than them running their own incubator. So it's work that is ongoing, but they were very clear when they started with this work that they are not going to be doing work on our behalf. So they are assisting the officials from the department to deliver on these things. They are just providing technical support as well as expertise, which we appreciate, because some of it comes from various countries that have done this before. So it's a big program, it's left with 2 years. The agreement was signed in 2017. So it's left with 2 years now before it's finished. The only funding that they provided is money that is supposed to go to sefa, called Innovation Fund, where they were going to assist us in terms of looking at the innovative projects that are different from the projects that we are running as a department. But because of COVID, we've looked at repurposing that funding to put more money on informal business interventions, because that's where the biggest demand is. When National Treasury gave us the Small Business Innovation Fund last year, there were some challenges. Some money was transferred to sefa for implementation, but for this new financial year, 2019-2020, National Treasury did allocate some funding to Department of Science and Innovation. We are in discussions with them because they told us that they can assist SMMEs with developing concepts and all those other things, but the business development aspect is our mandate. So we must enter into a partnership with them. So there are ongoing discussions with them, because we still want to fund those innovative enterprises, as Honorable Mbele was saying, and make sure that they become viable businesses, because no one else is supposed to provide support except ourselves as a Department of Small Business Development. So there are discussions between Department of Science and Innovation and ourselves to make sure that we still access that funding to support these innovative enterprises. Chair, I think those are the issues that I thought maybe I should also clarify. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG. Thank you to all participants, including honorable members. That was a constructive engagement. I'm really happy because I can see that the department is ready to respond on this COVID-19, because our intention is to make sure that we don't lose focus. Yes, here's the pandemic with us, which we don't know how long will it take, but that doesn't mean that we need to neglect our priorities as outlined by the president during his state of address. DG, I'm happy that you are outlining the issue of measure properly to us. What I can say is that we were worried that the two entities do not speak to one another. So our main concern was that the two should work together and make sure that we address all the challenges on the ground. So if you can try to present that proposal to cabinet or after that particular that particular entity you have appointed to can draft something for you, what you must bear in mind is that the portfolio committee is not jealous that we should have Seda and sefa. What we want is to make sure that we have got one objective, all of us, to can make sure that we address all issues which are related to poverty, unemployment, and inequality. So we'll wait for you. We appreciate that. All in all, I'm happy because you are promising us that during the coming quarter, you will try your best, but worried about the reduction of the amount and worried about the way the banks, commercial banks, are responding to our people. I think we still have got more work to do because those SMEs, they won't grow, they will collapse. DG, we have been with different institutions who were assisting the committee to can understand our position. So if you hear members engaging in this way, is that we have got knowledge that our small businesses are not growing, they are dying. And as a nation, we can't agree on that one. So please join hands, make sure that as the department, as agencies, you address those issues, more especially on rural areas. The issue of people with disabilities is a serious concern. What we must know is that those people are human beings like us. Some are fathers, some are mothers. So we need to focus into that particular area and to make sure that we consider more townships and rural areas so that this issue of poverty, unemployment, and inequality can be addressed once and for all. But all in all, thank you so much for the presentation and the responses you have given to us. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jay. Have a great day. See you now. Bye. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, my son, Mfundisi.
Love you, Mama.
Reverend.
Bye-bye.
Love you too, Papa. Bye. Must be careful. Cape Town is not a good place nowadays. King.
Thank you, Chair.
King.
Sorry
Thank you
for
so much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye. Bye.
Mr.
Mommy,
Dodd,
sir.
I'm driving to Eastern Cape.
Not yet. It's cold.
Why are you in the car? Chair,
It's
Mr. Dodd
cold, man, inside home, inside the house.
Oh.
No, it's very cold inside the house, man. I had to stay, sit outside in the carpet, rather.
Put the heater.
Preparing for our plenary meeting. At what time, King? Is it 3 o'clock?
It is at 3.
It is at 3, okay.
Yeah,
We'll rest a little bit.
Yeah, thank you very much. Nomta?
Thank you.
Hey, she's growing, eh?
Yeah, oh, it's not.
Hey, Nomta, growing, eh?
Yeah,
hey, Babini.
Hey, they are growing, eh?
I can't see Nomta, I can't see Lorraine.
Oh.
Oh.
Mama,
I can't see you. Can you see me?
Yes,
I can see you. I really.
I availed myself today.
You look so because of what? Yes. You extra Lorraine.
So I'm teaching a technology, Nomta.
Yeah.
A technology.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it is cute, eh? I can see the eyes, they're so big.
It has been a fruitful meeting.
King.
Yeah.
Ubadonsela besendlini ngoku ungathi semoto.
Ngiyambona lo mzukulu hayi ukhulile bo.
Hayi siyabonga yo.
Donsela is driving to Eastern Cape, Nomte.
No, not really. I'm not driving yet. Yeah, I'm here, but it's cold inside the house, man.
Okay.
Yeah, man, very winter.
It seems as if you are in the car.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Okay, sir. Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Tonsi.
Hey, Tambolenyo.
All right. Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
Tonsi.
Sure.
Bye.
Bye, Madonsela.
Bye-bye,
Hey,
Madonsela.
bye, Marcus. I don't see you, man.
Hey, Madonsela.
Hi, Madonsela. You're right.
Hey,
You're right. You're right.
Sasikuboni, mos.
Undibona niyandazi uba ndinjani.
Asisakwazi kaloku. Hawu,
Asimazi kunjani ngoku.
3 months.
Hayi.
Cela ukhona.
Angibona next term. Sibuya cela nini?
September.
September.
Yes.
Kunjani? Ndikhona memnjani.
Indaba ongazivezi la.
Hayi kaloku yiplatform yenu lena. Yiplatform ye-honorable members.
Awa, nawe phela. Awubona
yiplatform. Yiplatform ye-honorable members. Thina kaloku in the background. Xa singabonakali.
But thanks, baby. You're assisting us a lot. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, Che. Pleasure.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Izange ndisiveze.
Bye-bye.
Oh. Hey, wena Nabisa, intoni na? Enkosi ukubona sekugqibele kudala man.
Yabona ihleli khona. Se-Western Cape.
Yeah, it's Western Cape.
Yena uMadonsela uthi ipe yakhe.
Iphi yakho Madonsela?
Angithi ambona is driving to Eastern Cape.
Uyayibona? Uyayifaka Eastern Cape ngoku. Oh,
no, I'm not driving. Kuyabanda endlini.
Heater.
Anape kaloku ndisebenza ekaparafini. Umbane is very expensive.
Thini bethuna. Hayi Madonsela.
Nakho endlini jonga nakho. So
uyabona nama-excuses.
Bakushawutile bakungcolisile bathi phuma.
Yabona endlini.
Ufuna emsebenzini ke wena. You must go back to the office.
There's the money ekhona emsebenzini.
You must go back to office.
No, they were going to switch on the aircon at work. I don't have it here.
Then you have to go back to the office then.
No.
Yeah.
There's a virus there.
Okay, Sharp. Bye-bye. Cheers. Bye-bye. I'm shooting off.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye, John.